Okay.
Good morning and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Tullahoma. Today is Sunday, September 3, and it is Labor Day weekend. So, welcome to those of you at church, to those of you on Zoom, and those live streaming or watching the recording. So, for our opening reading, our readings today all come from the UUA website, and they're focused on Labor Day. So that's the first one is from Megan Visser. We enter this meeting house for kindness and comfort. May rough-worn hands and aching backs be healed. We enter this meeting house of hope for equality. May those who labor to survive live to know justice. We enter this meeting house of love and vocation. May our bonds of solidarity be strengthened. We enter this meeting house of courage and friendship. May we proceed hand in hand toward freedom. And now we will light the chalice. So Cass will read that. And Chuck, would you light the chalice there in the sanctuary, please?
In recognition of Labor Day, we light this flame to honor all work, including the work of our hands and our backs, in gratitude for all the labors that support our world, and for those who boldly continue the work of justice, equity, and peace.
So now we move on to announcements. So raise your hand if you have an announcement. And I guess I have to say the camera, when shortly after we went live stream, you guys are real fuzzy. You're out of focus. So that was great before we went live stream, but after it, you guys. Well, I love you as fuzzy as well. So yes, that's great. So Joy, announcements, please. Tom.
Yeah.
And Gary.
Okay, real quick, those that want to go out to lunch this afternoon, just put your name on the little tab over there by the, where the sign in and that sort of stuff, so that we'll just know who to expect, and we'll figure out where we're going, so we'll figure that out somewhere in the next few minutes. Anyway, thanks much.
Okay, Carrie?
We're planning our fall retreat. I believe it's the 5th of November. It's the first Saturday in November, nonetheless. And so if anybody has anything that they would want to contribute, we haven't decided yet what we'll do about the meal. So if you have a preference, let us know that. And we would like some help in putting it together. We'll be at the Recreation Center out at Tim's Ford, and we have the whole day, and some people are already working on it. So that's coming.
Yes, thank you, Gary. Other announcements?
Chuck?
Just a reminder that our Wednesday night discussion group will meet conveniently enough on Wednesday night it would get confusing otherwise. At 7:15 here, we are, we're trying to talk about the book Ethics in the Real World by Peter Singer. We do better staying on topic some weeks than others, but it's fun anyway. So come on out. And often Annie brings snacks, so it's worth it. You can join us on Zoom, but you won't get any snacks.
Thanks, Chuck. Thanks for organizing that. Yeah, Annie.
I am at the very beginning phases of thinking that I will be teaching anyone interested how to play Mahjong. so that we can have a group meet here at the church. I will donate a mahjong set to the church to keep here. So I'm just kind of asking for people who are interested right now, don't have any days set, haven't figured out, any of that yet, but just want to know who's interested.
All right. Thanks, Andy. Anything else? Yes, Terry.
I should ask Debbie to mention this, but she and I have been talking about getting a craft group going here at church. We'd meet like one Saturday a month and just come and have fun, sit and talk if you don't want to do crafts. Just a good time for women to come and spend time together.
And have, bring a craft that you're working on, and somebody can say, oh, I've never seen that done before, and we can share,
Our knowledge.
yeah.
All right, thank you, ladies. Meg.
Along that line, I would be willing to offer to guide a drawing class if anybody's interested in drawing.
Oh.
I know perhaps by this time, since we're all, let's face it, kind of old and
Department.
people have given up on the idea that they could ever learn to draw, but that's not true. That's blatantly absurd. And if there's any spark of interest in that, I'd be willing to
Like what kind of drawing, like portraitry or?
well, we deal with that when we work that out. But anyway,
Okay.
those are efforts that I would be willing to make, and I would initially provide materials.
Okay, great. Thank you, Meg.
I've got lots.
Any other announcements? All right, I have a couple or a few. PFLAG meets there at church on the second Monday of the month at 6 p.m. So that'll be next Monday, September 11th at 6 p.m. Our speaker next Sunday is Stan Baumgartner. I don't know his title. Carrie, did you get a title from him yet? Pardon? Who are we? Okay, all right, very good, thanks. And then if you want to financially support the work of the church, you can do so by sending a check. Just write it out to UU Tullahoma and send it to P.O. Box 331. They're in Tullahoma 37388. Last call for announcements. Anything else? All right, we're moving on. So now we will have a responsive reading, and then we will go to our speaker. So this also comes from UUA, and it's by Annie Brooks. We people gather here today on the quest for truth and meaning. We bear witness
To the record of human lives extinguished simply because people dared to live authentically, we bear witness.
to the unreported ones, uncounted ones, the unnamed many, whose lives and deaths will only ever be known by the universe. We bear witness.
In these times of heightened anxiety, we who are gathered here today reject the teachings of division and ignorance and commit to siding with love against hatred. We bear witness.
Against systemic power structures, including religions, that treat people as being anything less than human. We bear witness.
We remember the deaths and dehumanization. They have not gone unnoticed by us. We bear witness.
So now it is time for our speaker. So Chuck, welcome back. Good to see you there in church, and it's all yours.
Good morning, by the way. It's good to see y'all. The title of my talk this morning is Everything You Know Is Wrong. I borrowed that from a 1974 Firesign Theater album, mostly just because I liked the title. And beyond that, for better or worse, this talk has nothing to do with Firesign Theater or Labor Day. If I were going to give it a subtitle, it would be Musings on the Nature of Reality, I think. But that's less catchy. I'm going to start with my standard disclaimer. I don't claim to be an expert in anything I'm going to talk about. My only real qualification to speak to you is that I think about stuff. A lot, probably more than is healthy. And I greatly appreciate the opportunity to get up here once in a while and unburden myself of some of the stuff I've been thinking about. And in so doing, to burden y'all with it. Just one more disclaimer. I've noticed I tend to recycle some things in my talks, often accidentally. I've decided that this is a feature and not a bug. Some things bear repeating. And on that note, a couple of things that I've said before. I've always believed that there is such a thing as objective truth, a way things are, and I've always been driven to chase after it, elusive though it might be. I think of my search for truth as like walking toward the North Star. I can stay on that path all my life without getting appreciably closer than when I started, but at least I know I'm headed north. It keeps me oriented. In recent years, the search for metaphysical truth has seemed to become more like peeling away the layers of an onion. That is, it's become more about recognizing and discarding things that aren't truth to get at the truth that was always there, hidden underneath. In the movie Matrix, which by the way I rewatched just because it seemed to go along with this talk, and the first part of it did, the rest of it was just a fun movie. But in the movie Matrix, when Keanu Reeves' character Neo is first trying to digest that he's been living in a simulation and asks incredulously, "This isn't real?" Lawrence Fishburne's character Morpheus responds, "What is real? How do you define real? If you're talking about what you can feel, what you can smell, what you can taste and see, then real is simply electrical signals interpreted by your brain." Everything we think we know about the world around us comes to us as sensory inputs, processed and interpreted through our very complex neural systems. Our perceptions are very limited, both in what our senses are capable of perceiving and in what inputs they're exposed to in the first place. Each one of us goes around with a mental map of the world. We construct and update those maps based on the information we gather, process, and assimilate. And each of us has a different map. Our mental maps are not the reality. They're a complex set of assumptions about reality. They serve us by helping us navigate reality. One of the things that we do perceive is that whatever the actual nature of the reality in which we find ourselves, it's full of fellow travelers existing in the same reality and experiencing it through the same basic perceptions. We have fairly high confidence in the accuracy of our perception of reality because most other people seem to perceive it the same way we do, at least at a basic level, even if they each have a different perspective. That is, our maps are all different, but they're similar enough to reassure us. Our map of reality is almost a hallucination. It can't not be. But because it's a shared mass hallucination that enables us to navigate reality fairly well most of the time, we feel confident there's some validity to it. It's a useful hallucination. There is a reality out there. We're perceiving something. What makes our reality map not quite a hallucination is that it isn't invented out of nothing. Our delusion is in the details. In that sense, we do live in a simulation, each of us in our own personal simulation, actually. Everything you know is wrong. Everything I know is wrong. Or to put it a little less directly, nothing we think we know is absolutely certain. The reality our senses present us doesn't seem all that strange, but that's only because we're used to it. It's the world we operate in, and it comes to seem normal. But if we look at what we have learned about the universe, collectively, we find ourselves in a very weird reality. If we zoom in on reality, we find the world of particle physics getting weirder and weirder. The basic structure of stuff seems utterly alien to our experience. If we zoom out, astrophysics tells us we're in a universe that started with a big bang and is full of not only trillions of galaxies, but black holes and even stranger things. While not full of, the universe apparently consists almost entirely of empty space, and we're a vanishingly tiny part of all that. If we look inward, neuroscience keeps indicating that our brains are far more complex than we could have imagined, and that we're just scratching the surface of how our minds work. The universe seems to be governed by a consistent set of natural laws, although, to be fair, our knowledge of those laws is far from complete. Given the laws that govern the behavior of matter and energy, once the Big Bang happened, the very possibility of organic chemistry made life not only possible, but probably inevitable. A living being is almost by definition an organized group of chemicals that seeks to perpetuate itself. Not, of course, to perpetuate the atoms that make it up, but rather the organization thereof. The laws of nature, of chemistry and physics, make self-perpetuating structures possible. The fact that those structures can perpetuate themselves and evolve and adapt makes it inevitable that they will, given the required conditions. I strongly suspect that if or when we push outward into the universe, we'll find that life has occupied every niche where conditions made it possible. Patterns encoded in DNA chemical pairs, reproduction, onward and upward, more and more complexity, rinse and repeat, and ultimately, here we are. One way of looking at it is that our existence as conscious, self-aware, thinking beings is an absolute miracle, made possible only by the natural laws governing the universe being exactly what they are. In another way, though, the miracle of our existence is a tautology. There is no conceivable parallel universe in which beings are pondering how or why they don't exist. It's fun to speculate on what's beyond the universe. I have a strange idea of fun.
Yeah.
If the universe is finite, then technically the answer is nothing. Really nothing, that is, not empty space, which after all is what almost all of what's in the universe consists of. Is there a transcendent reality, some sort of broader framework within which the universe exists, higher dimensions, parallel universes? Who knows? We can probably trust natural laws, that is, for the universe to behave in predictable ways, although that's through inductive reasoning, with the caveat that we don't know all those laws, and that as we learn more, we keep finding the universe to be a more complex and weirder phenomenon than we could have imagined. By inductive reasoning, I mean that we don't know that natural laws can't suddenly change, but our best understanding is that they never have, so it's not likely that they will. When we encounter an apparent violation of natural laws, it generally turns out to be the result of wishful thinking, mistaken interpretation, or, not to put too fine a point on it, somebody's lying. We have incredible imaginations, and we can be incredibly creative at fooling even ourselves. Sometimes, though, its apparent violation is because we had an incomplete understanding of those laws in the first place. There are a lot of traits and proclivities that nature has equipped us with in the interest of our survival, both as individuals and as a species. While they're biologically necessary, some of those traits get in the way of an accurate perception of reality. Of course, we don't have to fully understand reality except to the extent that it helps ensure our survival and procreation. On the other hand, some of us have a pathological need to keep digging anyway. From the moment we're born, we perceive the world as divided into ourselves and our environment, and start to learn which parts of our environment are here to help us, mama for example, and which are not, gravity for example. In other words, we perceive the world as divided into me and not me, and a lot of what is not me is out to get me. This perception of ourselves as separate from our environment is necessary for our survival, but it leads us into an illusion of separateness. We have a fear of being at the mercy of randomness and chaos that makes us need to believe there's a guiding hand behind what goes on in the universe. This predisposes us to believe in deities or spirits who can be appeased or appealed to. It also predisposes us to superstitious behavior in a more general sense. If we don't understand how something works, but something we do once or twice correlates with a good outcome, we start to think that the thing we did caused the outcome. Lucky socks, anybody? We are very, very good at pattern recognition, at plucking a full image out of very little information. This is a valuable survival trait, and 100 false positives for one true positive can save our lives. Unfortunately, our pattern recognition radar is so strong that if there isn't really a pattern in the data we're taking in, we're inclined to see one anyway. This, combined with just not wanting events to be random, is what's behind most conspiracy theories. We have a related need to classify everything. You know, Pluto doesn't actually care whether we call it a planet. This is useful in making the complexity of the world easier to grasp. It keeps us from having to process every single instance of a thing separately. But it can also keep us from recognizing the differences between those instances and can make us reluctant to reclassify something that we've maybe stuffed into the wrong box, like poor Pluto. Also, to quote Henry David Thoreau, the mass of men lead lives of quiet desperation. Life is hard. Once we find a way to live that works for us, a lifestyle, a culture, a philosophy, a religion, a career, a social circle, we're often afraid of losing it and can become extremely protective of it, even without realizing it. So we're also not inclined to question it too closely until or unless it stops working. And that leads to confirmation bias, only admitting new information into our mental map if it agrees with what's already there, and discounting, dismissing, or even completely ignoring it if it disagrees. Again, it isn't necessary to have an accurate view of reality to function in reality. If somebody has a way that works for them, I'm not going to insist that they change it, at least to the extent that it's not hurting me or anyone else. Besides, even if I don't think so, they might be right. Improving the accuracy of our mental maps requires that we endeavor to be honest with ourselves, and awareness of our predispositions is the first step toward recognizing where they're leading us astray. In addition to those predispositions, we have skills and abilities that can help us improve our mental maps. We have the capability to communicate both by spoken and written language, which gives us a way to broaden our horizons by sharing information with our fellow travelers. Written language also gives us a way to archive information, providing the corporate memory of humankind, so that each new generation of seekers of knowledge can learn from and build on what others have done before, instead of having to start from scratch. As a species, we really didn't have any clue that reality was anything other than what you see is what you get, except for explanations that we invented, until at least 10,000 years ago, maybe much later than that. Before written language, it was difficult to pass knowledge down beyond basic survival skills developed through trial and error, or to pass it beyond one's own group. Technological developments have always worked to accelerate the accumulation and sharing of knowledge and information, from speech through written language, through the printing press, through computers, to the internet. There's more information now more accessible than ever before. Unfortunately, because now anyone can disseminate information to a broad audience with little real oversight, this does have a dark side. It's incredibly easy to widely spread misinformation. Sources of information have multiplied and decentralized, which makes it hard to know who, if anyone, to trust. AI is only going to make it worse. The near-term danger of AI, artificial intelligence, is in its misuse, not in it becoming conscious and taking over, science fiction notwithstanding. The human brain is so incredibly complex that the most advanced AI can't hold a candle to it, so far at least. But AI can certainly be misused by people wanting to fool us. One more thing to worry about. So much information coming from so many directions means that we really can't take it all in, and we need tools and approaches to help sort the probably accurate from the probably inaccurate. Critical thinking skills and a healthy skepticism are essential. In this age where everybody is trying to direct advertising of one kind or another at you, you learn to ask, why is this person telling me this? Trusting experts could lead you astray, but trusting non-experts is far more likely to do so. We often believe things that go against a consensus view because we really, really want them to be true, or because we sympathize with the underdog challenging authority. And every once in a great while, they are true. But for every so-called crackpot who turns out to be right, there are many, many others who aren't. Switch gears here a little bit to some thoughts on religion. Being a pragmatist by nature, I've long thought that the whole purpose of philosophy is to answer the question, okay, what should I do next and why? In a sense, that's also the purpose of many religions, but religion can give us a convenient shortcut, the why being because God said so. So we don't have to spend so much time sorting it out, and we can get on with life. UU theologian Forrest Church defined religion as our human response to being alive and knowing we're going to die. Combined with a strong survival instinct, which is of course an integral part of life, that is, with really not wanting to die, this makes us very strongly want to believe in life after death, even if we don't examine too closely what actual eternal life would imply. I basically can think of myself as an agnostic humanist, which means that I don't believe in, there is no hell, there might or might not be a heaven. I do think that the idea of life after death is as unlikely as it might be, is no less likely than being here in the first place. So. The available evidence, though, strongly suggests that people generally leave this reality when they die, but they leave their body behind. So we decide that there must be a part of them separate from the body, a soul that continues on and goes somewhere else, generally somewhere better. This gives rise in some religious views to that our soul came from somewhere else, that it somehow entered our body at birth or conception or somewhere in between, and that this existence, this reality we find ourselves in, is impure or even evil, and our souls need to be liberated from it eventually. But we did not come from somewhere else, regardless of whether anything comes next or not. We are from here. Everything I've seen in my time on earth has led me to believe that we are a product of this reality. We're an integral part of it, and we don't even make sense outside the context of this reality. This is true even if we assume that we're the whole reason this reality exists, that reality was created by a higher power for our benefit. If we are souls from somewhere else, headed somewhere else, but stuck here in these bodies for a few years, it makes this life really a little better than a simulation. Is there a higher power, a guiding consciousness behind it all, a grand plan that we aren't privy to? I can't say there isn't. We don't know anything about where the Big Bang came from or why the laws of nature are what they are, if there is a why. I will say that we don't have to be part of some higher being's grand plan to find purpose and meaning. Life is its own purpose, even, or maybe even especially, if it's a gift bequeathed by a higher power. It's up to each of us to create meaning in our lives. When something bad happens to someone who believes that God has a plan for them, and no explanation is readily apparent, the rationalization is often God works in mysterious ways. That is, of course, not terribly useful in figuring things out. In that view of reality, we're just pawns playing a role, so the universe is effectively, pragmatically random. If there is a plan to it all, a guiding consciousness, that's above our pay grade, we're just along for the ride. God has been defined by Paul Tillich as the ground of all being. To me, this feels consistent with Buddhist views of absolute and relative reality. The ground of all being is, in a sense, the canvas the universe is painted on. But when you get to that vague a definition of God, you're no longer really describing a conscious supernatural being. The nature of human consciousness is a very difficult thing to pin down. The most useful thing I got from Julian James's book, The Origin of Consciousness and the Breakdown of the Bicameral Mind, say that 3 times fast, is that the defining feature of our consciousness is the ability to imagine ourselves in future timelines, to mentally project an avatar into possible future scenarios as an aid to decision making. This notion seems to be supported by what I've read so far of Daniel Dennett's Consciousness Explained, a book I found to be best digested in small doses, and I'm still digesting. What I'm also starting to understand from Dennett is that our consciousness is not something that lives in a particular spot in our brain, but is more of a transcendent meta-construct that requires various parts of the brain working together. Perhaps more on this another time after I finally finish the book. Our conscious mind is a transcendent property. It's not separate from the body, but it's somehow more than the body. Like the flame on a candle, it can't exist without the candle. It was born of the candle, but somehow it transcends the candle. Biologically, the mind evolved to help ensure the survival of the body. But once the mind made the leap to conscious self-awareness, it feels to us more like the body exists to be the mind's interface to reality. So which is it? Does the mind serve the body, or does the body serve the mind? These are 2 different perspectives, but they are only perspectives. Both of these can be true at the same time. Our body and mind aren't really separate. They're 2 aspects of the same entity. It's possible that the self-awareness that comes along with human consciousness is an accidental byproduct of that avatar projection capability, an unintended gift from the universe. There's a line that's reused or paraphrased so frequently that I can't find the original author. We are the universe becoming aware of itself. And similarly, this reading from our hymnal by Annie Dillard, we are here to abet creation and to witness to it, to notice each other's beautiful face and complex nature, so that creation need not play to an empty house. It might be a cosmic accident that we are able to go beyond just surviving to contemplate the vast weirdness of the universe. Don't waste it. Pantheism is the belief that God consists of all reality, that reality and divinity are exactly the same thing. Not that God is in all things, that's another ism altogether, but that God is all things. Panentheism, on the other hand, is the belief that this reality is only part of God, or a manifestation of God, who also exists at a higher level, transcending space and time. In a way, it's consistent with Tillich's ground of being. I think that the notion of pantheism is just a matter of perspective. Reality is reality. It's divine if you choose to see it that way. The secular is the sacred if you choose to see it that way. The universe is an awe-inspiring place. The mundane is the magical if you choose to see it that way. These are not paradoxes, they're perspectives. The well-known poem Desiderata by Max Ehrmann assures us that you are a child of the universe, no less than the trees and the stars. You have a right to be here. And whether or not it is clear to you, no doubt the universe is unfolding as it should. The National Lampoon parody of saying Deteriorata gives us the alternate view. that you are a fluke of the universe, you have no right to be here, and whether you can hear it or not, the universe is laughing behind your back. On one hand, we live utterly insignificant lives on a little ball of rock orbiting an unremarkable star in a backwater arm of one of trillions of galaxies. On the other hand, we are the end purpose, the whole point of the last 14 billion years of the development of the universe. Fluke of the universe or child of the universe? These are two vastly different perspectives, but they are only perspectives. Both can be true at the same time. Either way, we're all in this together. On one hand, we are individual beings existing in a shared reality, separate and distinct, like the fingers on your hand. On the other hand, we are local manifestations of a single universal consciousness, part of a greater whole without which we don't even make sense, like the fingers on your hand. So are we individuals or parts of a greater whole? These are two vastly different perspectives, but they are only perspectives. Both can be true at the same time. Either way, we're all in this together. All of us go around with our own mental maps of the world. Our maps are not the reality, they're a complex set of assumptions about reality. The better they are, the more reliably we can do that avatar projection thing and figure out what to do next. They serve us by helping us navigate reality, but when they stop being useful, we need to recognize the need to change them. Everything you and I know is wrong, or at least incomplete. So stay humble. Once you've decided your internal map of reality is the reality, you've closed yourself off from learning and growth. You are not a fixed entity, you are a process. You're more of a verb than a noun. You're changing and hopefully growing all the time. You can at least try to make your map more accurate by seeking out new information and by comparing notes with others who have different perspectives. I am not trying to tell you what the truth is. If I just make you think about something you hadn't thought about, or look at something from a fresh point of view, that's all I'm trying to do here. My work is done. Everything I've said today could be wrong, except this: we are all here, even if we have only the vaguest idea where here is. We're all in this together. Life's hard, so try to help each other through it, and try to leave this reality at least a little better than you found it for the sake of those who come after it. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, John. That was great. We will now close with our traditional Psalm 414. However, I'm going to ask you folks at church to stand and lead that, because our hymnal book is still in a box somewhere. We haven't come to that box. So whenever you guys are ready at church, take it away.
As we leave this friendly place, love give light to every face. May the kindness which we learn light our hearts till we return.
All right, thank you, folks. Let's take about a 15-minute break. Come back at 10 after.